Yep, got my Wolverine shirt, what's up? So typically, my primary focus of this channel is movies. Yes, I'm a movie fanatic, but anyone that knows me personally also knows I'm a huge comic book nerd. I've been reading comics for over 2 decades, and there was a chunk of time where all my focus went to Wolverine because Wolverine is an awesome character. I was obsessed. I was reading every Wolverine comic I could get my hands on. Here's an embarrassing picture from 2005. You're welcome. In that time, I discovered Greg Rucka and his Wolverine run. I think it's Rucka. Rucka. Sorry. Specifically in this run, issues 1 through 6, also known as The Brotherhood. Issues 1 through 6, volume 1, when it breaks down like this, it's called a trade. This is my favorite Wolverine story, and since I know none of you are going to read it, I'm going to break it down in its entirety. By the way, I also think this would be a great movie, but it'll never happen. This story starts out from the perspective of Lucy Braddock. She's a young lady working at a diner and she has a troubled past. The narrative of the story starts out with her writing to her journal. Specifically, writing to a man that she sees at the diner every day she calls Mean Man. Because he looks mean, that's why she gave him the nickname, okay? He's a mean looking guy. And yes, the Mean Man is Wolverine. Moving along in this issue, you find out that she and Wolverine live at the same apartment complex. They're neighbors. They observe each other, but they're both too hostile and timid to actually interact. One night, Wolverine sees that she has a guy over, and as he leaves, he pays her for the sex that they just had. She didn't like that Wolverine saw that, so she yells at him. One night, she sees him come back to his place with a knife in his leg. He proceeds to yell back at her. You know, friendly neighbors. Through this time, Lucy is still narrating the story by talking to her journal, talking to the Mean Man. She seems to think that Mean Man might be the guy she's looking for to protect her from the people that she's running from. Wolverine makes the first move, forgetting a book at the diner and opening up a possible conversation between the two. Lucy sees the opportunity and she goes for it. She goes to his apartment to return the book and they have a conversation about books and reading and writing and getting stabbed. You know, neighborly conversation. The best part of this conversation is Lucy's trying to figure out if Wolverine is a good man or not. And this is the underlying theme of the whole story. She briefly mentions her journal and that it's hidden. Being the friendly neighbor that he is, he lends her a book, and as she's leaving, she says, "Can I count on you to look out for me?" Wolverine says, "Sure." She leaves and the seed is planted for these two to become friends. Wolverine has kind of a history in comics of taking care of younger girls like an older brother would. After this, 2 guys show up. One kicks in Lucy's door, one kicks in Wolverine's door. They open fire with machine guns. Lucy dies and these guys take off, not knowing who they just fucked with. The story's still being narrated by Lucy's journal to Mean Man, alright? Wolverine, healing up from being riddled with bullets, makes his way over to Lucy's. He finds her dead, and he also finds her journal. He takes her journal to read it at the diner, and he reads everything that was just narrated to the audience. He finds out that she was in trouble, and he found out that the people after her were called the Brothers. She knew that it was only a matter of time before they found her and killed her. She was looking for someone like the Mean Man to protect her, but she was just too late. And these were her last words to her journal. "That's just the way it goes. Just another runaway murdered. That's all they'll see. They'll blame it on drugs or sex or both or maybe neither. They'll make what happened to me be mundane, Mean Man. They'll make it forgettable. That's what scares me the most. Even if you do nothing more, please do this for me. My name is Lucy Braddock. Don't forget me." And the issue ends with this panel. Boom. Time for Wolverine to do some work. This girl was nice to him. They just started to become friends. He said he'd look out for her, and now she's dead, and now some motherfuckers gotta die. And you get this panel that's like, I'm gonna fuck these guys up. Yes! That's awesome. I get sweaty over this shit. The next few issues are Wolverine investigating and using his tracking skills to find these guys that killed Lucy. He digs a bullet out of his body that they shot him with. He takes that to an arms dealer. The arms dealer leads him to a gun trade show. This is where Wolverine finds a motherfucker that sold those guys their illegal machine guns. Wolverine sets up an illegal deal for some illegal guns with this guy. That night, he follows this dealer to the hotel to interrogate him a little bit. Gonna find out who he sold those guns to. This issue introduces our other lead character, Cassie. She's an undercover ATF agent for the FBI. She's been faking a relationship with this guns dealer, waiting for him to make a deal to bust him on. Luckily, Wolverine hurries up that process for her, so she arrests him. Wolverine got a name from the guy to follow, so he takes off. Cassie separately interrogates the guy, kicks the shit out of him. She decides to follow that name, follow Wolverine to see what he's up to. This name leads Wolverine to Westfall, Oregon, population 302. He starts asking around for the name of this guy, Dennis Terrell, and he gets the attention of a big fella. Naturally, being a Wolverine comic, this leads to a bar fight. Wolverine eventually finds out that this big fella is Lucy's father, and Dennis Terrell is actually the town sheriff. Dennis Terrell is a bad dude. Not only does he buy illegal guns, he sells these illegal guns to a local cult, the Brotherhood. He also kidnaps young girls and gives them to the cult as well. He's a bad dude. And Lucy was one of these girls that Dennis kidnapped. He kidnapped Lucy and gave her to the brothers, and when her dad started asking about it, they cut his eyeball out, and they threatened to kill her if he asked any more questions. He's a bad dude. Somehow Lucy escaped, and eventually they found her. Obviously. We also find out the name of the cult leader, and his name is Cry. Yes, it's Cry. He's another bad dude. Back to Cassie as she follows up her own investigation for Dennis Terrell. She goes to his police station and ends up meeting Cry. He doesn't like what she has to say, so he maces her in the face. They beat her up and take her back to the cult to be one of Cry's wives. Cry's wives. Cry's wives. Cry's wives. Back to Wolverine. Dennis Terrell finds out that Wolverine's talking to Lucy's dad in his trailer, so they decide to shoot it up. Lucy's dad escapes into the woods, and Wolverine proceeds to sneak into Dennis Terrell's squad car. Wolverine pokes and prods for information, and then proceeds to do what he does best. He heads to the police station and finds it a bloody mess. He uses his super mutant sensory powers and discovers it's Cassie's blood. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing here, girl? Bounce back to Cassie. She's taken back to the cult and locked up with the rest of Cry's wives. She makes a friend and comes up with a plan to get the fuck out of there. At the same time, Wolverine found where the cult was at using his super sensory powers. He's on the outside getting ready to come in. This sets up two separate perspectives from the same location in the same situation. That's good storytelling. This leads to issue number 5, which is a total slaughter. Wolverine's taking dudes out one by one as he makes his way in. Cassie escapes by stabbing the dude that delivers the food. Wolverine gets in and discovers a room full of boxes. These boxes are filled with the belongings of the girls that the cult has murdered. Wolverine realizes that this cult has killed lots and lots of innocent girls. And Berserker Rage, snicked, let's go! Slicing, dicing, carnage. Wolverine finds Cry, he murders his bitch ass. This is where Cassie's story lines up with Wolverine's as she finds him just after he killed Cry. He's like, hey, I'm not your enemy. I never was. See ya. He takes off and leaves Cassie to call the FBI to clean up the whole mess. Issue 6 is here to help wrap up the whole story. Cassie decides she wants to continue investigating Wolverine and that she might have the hots for him. What the movies never portray is that Wolverine is a short, hairy, ugly little guy, and for some reason, he's a fucking pimp. The ladies always want Wolverine, probably because he's a total badass. He's an asshole, you know? Ladies like assholes. After she decides she wants to continue this investigation, we just leave her story at that. Wolverine ends up heading back to New York City, and he calls his friend Nightcrawler to meet him for some drinks at a mutant-friendly bar. I love this conversation he has with Nightcrawler because it calls back to issue 1 and his entire conversation with Lucy. It takes a few beers for Nightcrawler to figure out why Wolverine's so upset. It's mostly because he couldn't save Lucy's life. She asked him to be there for him, he said yes, and he was too late. Nightcrawler's the best person that Wolverine knows, and he wants Nightcrawler to help him resolve his inner conflict. Wolverine wants reassurance that he's not an animal, he's not a monster. This has always been Wolverine's problem with himself. He's afraid that one day he'll lose control, and he doesn't want to be that monster. Nightcrawler says that actions speak louder than words, and your actions have always told me that you are a good man. That's when Wolverine decides to let Nightcrawler know that 3 days ago he killed 27 people. He explains the whole story with the cult and Lucy and everything. Nightcrawler says evil begets evil, but concludes that Wolverine is a good man. Wolverine is a product of over 100 years of pain and torture, and in the end, he helped people that needed help. Things pretty much wrap up there. Nightcrawler settles Wolverine down, and they go along their merry way. I love this story. It's like a Western. Wolverine has these years of just bouncing from place to place and helping people along the way. This story shows how Wolverine interacts with regular people, and for the most part, he's a real asshole. He's an asshole murder machine with a huge heart. He helps a girl who asked for help a little bit too late by slaughtering an entire cult. Wolverine is this weapon of death. Weapon X, baby. He does things and makes decisions that normal heroes will not do because he understands how horrible people can be through his own experience. And the best way to deal with them is to slaughter them. Wolverine deals with the darkest of villains and he sees the worst in humanity, and the whole time he's questioning, is that me? There's a consistent inner conflict with Wolverine that never lets up. He's terrified of going overboard and going berserker full time. This is a great story that rounds out fully who this entire character is. I don't know why more people don't talk about this story because it's so fucking good. It's basically got a simple Western structure with a cult and a Weapon X. Greg Rucka's run on Wolverine goes for another like 13 issues and they're all awesome. The full run of that story with different writers taking over from time to time goes from like 2003 to 2009. There's a lot of great stories in there. I suggest you check them out. The artwork and cover art is fantastic. I can't stress that enough. Derek Robertson and Esad Ribic did such a great job. The cover art for issue number 2 is one of my all-time favorites. Okay, I geeked out enough. If you want me to do more stories like this, I'm game. Just let me know in the comments. I really geeked out on this one. I'm exhausted. Thanks for sticking around. Go check out that comic book series. See ya. Subscribe!